Hello, everyone. Welcome to Relationship Revenge Channel. Well, let's get started. I recently found out that my wife, with whom I have been married for 4 years, participates in the creation of adult videos with other men. Before marriage, we dated for 2 years, and now we have a wonderful 2-year-old child. At the age of 28, she worked as a high school teacher and earned significantly less than me. That's why I made the decision for her to become a stay-at-home mom. When we first started dating, one of the aspects that attracted me to my wife was her adventurous nature in the bedroom. She was constantly striving for new sensations, whether it was exploring different styles of underwear or discovering unconventional interests. Among her predilections were leather clothing, while I found pleasure in taking on a dominant role in our intimate moments. Despite the fact that I was comfortable in this dynamic, there was one aspect that presented a problem for me. Her strong attraction to spanking and enjoying pain during certain actions. These preferences caused me some anxiety and a sense of unease. I found myself in a situation where, at her request, I had to use a slap, but it did not give me pleasure. She wanted me to take the initiative and initiate it without her asking, but it wasn't natural for me. Unfortunately, after the wedding, our relationship faced difficulties related to domestic pressure. It became difficult to maintain a constant desire to surprise and be surprised, and my busy work schedule left an imprint on our intimate life. Coming home tired while she was at home all day and waiting for me to match her energy has become an impossible task. Apart from the fact that we had to move to the other side of the country, away from loved ones, our relationship became even more strained. After the birth of my daughter, my wife faced difficulties in losing excess weight and went through a period of depression. These years have been the hardest in our marriage, and we have thought about parting more than once. And yet we decided to seek the help of a marriage counselor, hoping to save our union. Having decided to regain self-confidence, my wife started working out in the gym every day, gradually regaining her confidence and successfully shedding baby weight. The only thing that has been lost forever is her old sense of adventurism. Although it didn't particularly bother me, it took a significant load off my shoulders. Sometimes she tried to imagine me negligent because of constant employment at work. But I sincerely believed that I lead a typical balanced life. I sincerely believed that I was providing her with everything she needed. I trusted her with access to my bank account. She made purchases without consulting me, but I preferred not to pay attention to it, believing that if she considers it necessary to buy something, then it really is necessary. But then doubts began to creep into my head. After returning from a week-long work conference where I had to spend 5 nights out of the house, I remember the moments when I called my wife and noticed her shortness of breath, but she easily brushed it off, explaining it by playing with our child. Naively, I didn't pay attention to the suspicious activities going on behind my back, partly because she was a stay-at-home mother. I was constantly working 12 hours a day, despite being tired. When I returned home and sought intimacy, my wife was always open to it. With such a reaction, I had no reason to suspect her of infidelity. However, one Friday evening when I came home, I found my wife taking a bath. Coincidentally, I was brushing my teeth in the same bathroom. When she got up from the bath to get a towel, I saw numerous handprints on her buttocks. This puzzled me a lot since at least 2 months had passed since my last slap. The presence of these traces simply did not fit into my head. Time seemed to freeze. I stood there, unable to move, and all my thoughts were absorbed in the possible consequences of this imprint. At that moment, it dawned on me that her once bright and insatiable desire for intimacy could not just disappear overnight. I had to come to terms with the fact that if I'm not meeting her needs, then someone else is doing it. The weight of suspicion weighed on me as I mentally went over every dubious case in my memory. In one case, I called her. She said she was in a certain place, but deep down I knew she was being dishonest. But I brushed her off, blaming it on her desire to hide the connection with an unpleasant friend to me. Accordingly, I justified her behavior. But now I began to evaluate those events of the past in a different way. Without hesitation, I approached her while she was drying herself with a towel and asked her to turn around so that I could clearly see the handprint on her buttocks. I asked who the hand belonged to, but she kept silent, deliberately avoiding the answer. Finding my question absurd, she abruptly left the bath. Angry, I grabbed her hand tightly and shook her, causing her to cry out in pain. Demanding an honest answer, she gave a ridiculous explanation, saying that she had hit herself. Not knowing whether it was sincere or sarcastic, she tried to leave wrapped in a towel. I have never resorted to physical violence against my wife in anger, but I was very upset by her condescending attitude when I asked her a serious question. In frustration, I wrapped my arms tightly around her biceps, urging her to answer. She expressed her dissatisfaction, saying that I was not emotionally ready for her and that work was more important to me than our relationship. In response, I asked if her actions implied treason, and she tried to free herself from my grip. The revelation that she had been caught made her very upset. Instead of taking responsibility, she shifted the blame onto me for working hard and supporting our family, using this as an excuse for her infidelity. A heated argument ensued, during which she deliberately raised past issues that we had already discussed in therapy, trying to distract my attention from the indisputable evidence of her infidelity. Her actions clearly indicated a desire to deflect blame from herself and avoid a collision with the truth. During our heated argument, I switched to name-calling, calling her cold and considering her worthless. Emotions were running high. We were shouting at each other. In the midst of our confrontation, I asked her about a possible affair, to which she stated that she had an affair with one of my superiors. Unfortunately, I didn't pay attention to our daughter's crying, which came from the next room. Overcome with anger, I impulsively reacted to her offensive remark, demanding that she leave my house and go to a man whom she considered superior to me. I dragged her out of the house by force, persuading her to leave. When I closed the door behind me, she continued to scream and beat on it tirelessly. Apparently, a concerned neighbor alerted the authorities, and an officer appeared on the doorstep. Waiting for their arrival seemed to me a long time, during which my wife persistently knocked on the door, and our daughter sobbed inconsolably. The sight of a frustrated child only calmed my anger. As I realized that this was not an ideal environment for raising and educating a child, I felt an irresistible urge to leave our house, at least for the night, in search of solace. Unfortunately, my actions took a worse turn when I hurriedly kicked my wife out of the house dressed only in a towel. This did not bode well with the police, who insisted that I allow her to enter the house, to which I reluctantly agreed. However, taking advantage of the moment of conspiracy, I quietly took possession of her phone and set off from our house to spend the night at the nearest hotel. Arriving at the hotel, I found that her phone is easily accessible to me, since she has kept the same password since the beginning of our relationship. Looking through her phone, I found out that a few months ago, my wife told her mother about her dislike for me and her desire to end our marriage. At first, her mother tried to convince her of the need to establish a relationship, but eventually gave up and advised her to find another man through her friend. Surprisingly, my wife replied to her mother, assuring her that there was no need to worry since she already has many potential suitors. She expressed her emotional detachment and made it clear that the efforts aimed at saving our marriage are not worth the result. In addition, she made it clear that, in her opinion, the reward for working on our relationship is not worth the effort. In a conversation with a friend, to whom I treated negatively, she said that she had turned to a lawyer for advice about a divorce, but at the same time mentioned the need to achieve financial independence beforehand. Interestingly, this coincided with the period when she began to quietly withdraw money from my account and hide it in an unknown direction. She confessed to her friend that, according to her lawyer, our marriage has not yet reached the length that is necessary to receive significant compensation. In this regard, she expressed her intention to remain married until she finds a more suitable partner. Then she decided to stay with me until the moment when she will have the right to receive alimony. It was unpleasant for me to realize that she intended to use me to her advantage until that moment came. I was shocked by this discovery and could hardly believe that I had been living with such an evil person all this time. Even worse, I found text messages from a random man on her phone that talked about past relationships. Even more worryingly, I found videos of her having an intimate relationship with another man. To top it all off, she had the audacity to invite another stranger into our house. Judging by the date of the video, I was at work at that time, and my daughter was in the house. When I came across additional photos on her phone, I discovered a collection that raised doubts about her fidelity in the early stages of our marriage. In these pictures, she was depicted in provocative outfits demonstrating her involvement in various unconventional preferences. I was especially alarmed by the fact that these photos were taken before the birth of our daughter. Moreover, in numerous photographs, she was depicted in leather clothes and in frank positions, even when she went to visit her parents. It's worth noting that these visits to the parents were made before the conception of our daughter. In addition, I discovered intimate photos in underwear taken by myself, which further increased the bewilderment. I was stunned when I came across something in her phone that seemed familiar to me. It was a collection of emojis hiding her face, which made me think that she was sending them to other guys. To my surprise, I also found a 2-year-old photograph of her with 2 men, which may have indicated infidelity. Just by examining the contents of her phone, it became obvious that she was in a relationship with at least 3 men, advertising herself as a submissive person. In addition, I found explicit photos that she shared with other men, as well as a video showing a different type of power dynamics. Perhaps it was because of my absent-mindedness that I never felt the desire to check her phone. At that moment, I realized that her love for me was never real, and our marriage was just a convenience for her. The pain was unbearable because I sincerely believed that we had a loving and devoted family. Doubts began to torment me, spreading even to our beloved daughter. When she returned home from the hotel the next day, she continued to behave defiantly. I suppressed my feelings, hid the truth, because I felt like nothing more than a financial resource for her. But now that the truth has become known, she has decided that she has nothing more to lose. Unfortunately, she was wrong. After returning her phone, I told her that I had witnessed everything and knew all the details. In a sarcastic tone, I suggested that she pursue a career as an adult actress. Unexpectedly for me, she replied that she could. She put all the blame on me, claiming that I pushed her away and neglected her. She went so far as to accuse me of cheating last year, which was a completely false statement. Until now, she insists that the infidelity began only in March. To dispel all doubts, I decided to do a DNA test for my daughter, and he confirmed that she was indeed my biological child. The most annoying thing is that despite my efforts to formalize equal custody, my lawyer informed me that I still have to pay alimony, which came as a surprise to me. According to him, I am the main earner, and my income significantly exceeds her income. Despite her current employment as a teacher, I was pleased to realize that in the end she would return to a profession that she despises and which brings a meager salary. It was only a matter of time before she came to the realization that she would not find a person comparable to me, and the problems of a single mother would become obvious. She may have entered into relationships with several people, but she still does not notice the consequences that await her. During our trial, her lawyer tried to convince the judge that she deserved alimony, but his efforts were ultimately unsuccessful. She had the opportunity to return to work at any time. Also, I was lucky to have an experienced lawyer who used the evidence I collected from her phone to present her as dishonest and lying. It became obvious that she entered into our marriage without sincere intentions, since she was unfaithful for 2 of the 4 years of our life together. Currently, I am obliged to pay child support, knowing full well that she is likely to spend money on herself, while I continue to be responsible for acquiring everything necessary for our daughter, despite the fact that custody of her is carried out in equal shares. Even if we rewrote this text, the content would remain the same. She would have continued to receive alimony. It still hurts me that my wife and daughter don't live under the same roof with me. I didn't like growing up in a single-parent family. I firmly believe that she will try to reconcile with me as soon as she realizes that the luxurious lifestyle is over. I try to see my daughter every day in the evenings. I take her to the park and have a great time with her. I feel very bad that my daughter doesn't live with me. I even talked to my ex-wife and asked her to let our daughter live with me. In this case, my parents were ready to move closer to me to help with my daughter. But my ex was totally against it. But one day when I took my daughter to visit my parents, Soy Mom, who works as a pediatrician, examined my daughter and noticed several bruises on her body. Mom told me about it in a panic. It was clear that the ex-wife was beating our child. My parents and I did not hesitate to contact the police with a statement. Less than a week later, the guardianship authorities came to my ex-wife's apartment with a check. They found a lot of violations in the maintenance of the child. There was also a medical worker who examined my daughter and realized that she really beats my daughter. During the investigation, neighbors were interviewed, and they confirmed that they often hear the screams of my ex and the loud crying of my daughter. In general, the inspector found a lot of evidence that my ex-wife is a terrible mother. After the trial, as I expected, my ex-wife was deprived of her parental rights and sentenced to a year in a penal colony. I am grateful to my mother for her attentiveness and for taking care of my precious daughter. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, then please hit subscribe button. Take care.